So this is Louis, and before we actually get into the topic at hand, and that's going to be this article from The Hill, talking about a high school in New Hampshire where a girl was censored on American Pride Day during Spirit Month in the school for wearing a MAGA hat and a Trump t-shirt. That's the crux of the story. I will preface the commentary by saying head on over to JList, head on over to PlayAsia, my two affiliates. The links are in the description. If you don't want to support me there, support me on Subscribestar with either a one-time donation or a subscription. You can support me on Subscribestar, and I encourage you to. But I'll put that aside. Links are all in the description, and we will actually talk about this topic at hand. I saved this, and I question whether I want to talk about it or not. And obviously, in listening to me now, you realize that I was motivated to actually talk about this because I think that this is something that shows the sickness in our culture and in our politics. I think that this is a depressing story, but it's not wholly depressing, and it's because this particular girl, Mackenzie, Soretta Mackenzie, I thought her name was Mackenzie, because Mackenzie's actually a girl's name, whatever. But anyways, I'm going to call her Mackenzie, because I think that's a better fucking first name. She was confronted by her principal for wearing a MAGA shirt, or a MAGA hat and a Trump t-shirt on America Pride Day during Spirit Month in the school. Now, I'm sure that in this particular high school, that if they're doing this, they probably had, Black Separatist Day, Black Pride Day or some sort of nonsense. Which I don't even want to go down into a tangent about, but it's like the only people that celebrate and push these kind of holidays are people that want to get money out of it, hucksters, because there's an entire industry for that, and people that want to push black separatism. Those are the only two fucking groups that benefit from those kind of holidays. I'm sure that America Pride Day was not the only fucking holiday during Spirit Month at this school. I'm sure they had all sorts of separate but equal day for Native Americans, taxation, and, we have separate rights and more rights than the white man and that sort of nonsense. I'm sure that happened at this school too. But on America Pride Day, Mackenzie here wore a MAGA hat and a Trump t-shirt and was confronted by her principal and told to take off the hat and remove the shirt. And because she didn't have another shirt to wear, she had to, if I remember correctly, borrow a friend's sweatshirt to wear over it. And in this particular instance, the way that you know it's wrong is that in reviewing the actual dress code of the school, and she says this in the news segment, and that's all we have to go on, they're not reporting otherwise, that there is no actual part of the dress code that says you can't wear political attire. So if it isn't written in the dress code, you are allowed to wear it. And I'm sure in this high school, it's a lot less restrictive than an office place. But unless you say something in your dress code, and political expression is a big deal, in any kind of professional environment, it is incredibly discouraged for you to talk about politics, talk about religion, and anything else that can be considered likely in increasing conflict or causing a conflict. My experience has always been that in environments such as office spaces or anything that's a professional environment, you have your policies related to dress code, expression, a social media policy, and also a personal conduct. That's just standard practice for professional employment. I'm sure it's different for small businesses where they don't really have the know-how to lay all that out, but anything that's corporate, it's always laid out. But in the instance of this high school, that is excluded from anything related to personal conduct, to what you're allowed to express, and what you're allowed to wear. Because it's excluded, because it's not been included in the actual written rules of the school, you are allowed to do it, by default. Nowadays, with all the fucking safe space nonsense and everything related to bullying and harassment, I'm sure high school today is a nightmare in comparison to even when I, back in the day, was in high school. And even then, you didn't really go out of your way to stand out unless you're incredibly attractive, and that's part of the game of social status. But nowadays, I'm sure that expression has been incredibly curtailed. And in this instance, it's an example of that, but it's an example of the principal likely having a political bias or being prompted by other people, whether it's students that are bigoted towards this girl's beliefs or potentially teachers that are bigoted towards this student's beliefs. Before I actually continue with what I have to say about this, let's watch the news segment that discusses this. And bear in mind that we're going off of what is being reported and her position. But the thing is that, in her defense, she is quite articulate for a high school freshman in describing what happened and why she believes she's in the right. And I don't see anything contradicting her. And based on her demeanor, on her expressing what happened, she appears very confident in describing what occurred. And that, to me, shows that she is telling the truth.
A New Hampshire teen showed her patriotism at school and was then disciplined for it. She says she was asked to cover up her T-shirt made famous by President Donald Trump. New at 11, Boston 25 News reporter Julie Leonardi was in Epping, where she explains what the family is hoping to get from tomorrow's meeting with the principal.
The 15-year-old says she didn't think it would be a problem to wear a Trump T-shirt on America Day at her high school until her principal asked her to cover up.
I hope just what comes out of it is just, like, people need to understand that it's okay to have different opinions. That's really just what I want.
Epping high school freshman Soretta McKenzie says she was told by her school's principal that her Make America Great Again T-shirt violated the school's dress code policy.
I wasn't upset or mad. I was just kind of surprised and embarrassed, really.
The teen chose to wear the MAGA garb because it was Spirit Month at school, and Monday was American Pride Day. She says she didn't know it would cause such a problem.
No, it's a shirt, you know, and it only says Trump, Make America Great Again. It doesn't say anything like build a wall. So I don't understand how anyone can get offended, how it's disrespectful.
Soretta says she borrowed a friend's sweatshirt and took off the hat, but now she feels like her First Amendment rights were violated. She says there is nothing in the student dress code regarding political clothing.
If it said no political gear or anything, then I could understand why it was dress coded. But it doesn't say that. So I feel as though I'm obligated to have my own opinion, and other people can have theirs. We don't have to agree, that's fine.
The teen's father believes political opinion should be openly discussed in the school setting.
We don't want politics to be totally removed from schools, because it needs to be in schools. And the way they went about it was, the answer to this problem is remove everything. You don't want that.
Epping High School superintendent tells Boston 25 2 students were asked to change items of clothing. This incident has been under investigation since Tuesday morning and is currently still under investigation. We will take steps to remedy this situation for all parties involved and ensure that this type of situation never happens again in any Epping school. The McKenzie family tells me they plan on meeting with the school principal Friday morning. Reporting from Epping, New Hampshire, Julie Leonardi, Boston 25 News.
With that out of the way, I'm going to compare this to another instance that was hilarious that I talked about in the past. Was the Brazilian woman who was in a restaurant or a bar who knocked the hat off of this random Trump guy, the MAGA dude, and was immediately taken into custody and is now facing deportation. Maybe she's been deported, maybe she's been released, who fucking knows, with our shitty immigration system. But this was a funny instance because the adult didn't really care. He was just filming himself, just sitting at a bar, like, laughing to himself, like, ah, look at this. And she's assaulting him, in essence, because of her physical actions against him. But in that case, it's a funny story because of what happens to her, and she deserves everything that comes her way because of not only her actions, but her being on the wrong side of the law. It's not hard to be on the right side of the law. I've been doing it my entire life. It's incredibly easy to be on the right side of the law. The only exceptions would be if you have a lead foot, getting speeding tickets. That's it. And I've fixed that for myself. I have not received a speeding ticket in quite some time. Many, many months. But in every other way, it's not hard to be on the right side of the law. And so that's why that Brazilian woman deserves what she got. Because she went well out of her way, motivated by her political bigotry, to harass someone, to assault them in a small way, but to get herself arrested, in essence, and face deportation. She deserves what's happening to her. But it's funny. There's a lot of levity with the story because she got her comeuppance and the guy really didn't care. The thing that shows you that our society, and by that I mean our culture and politics, that our society is sick, is the fact that that's happening at all. That this illegal feels that she is in the right to do this to this guy. And this is hardly the only example. Maybe I'll find just one other, but there have been numerous instances of what is in essence political violence against Trump supporters. And this isn't to justify any of Trump's administration or Trump's election or supporting Trump, but it is to say that from a detached, objective point of view, there has been a disproportionate amount of violence targeted and harassment targeted towards Trump supporters. If we want to live in a functioning republic, this cannot be acceptable. It cannot be acceptable to target, harass, or be violent towards your political opponents, or just someone or some group that is united in their support for one particular political candidate. Even in the case of like Antifa and communists and that sort of thing, socialists in our society, you aren't justified in bringing violence to them. You should beat them at the ballot box. That is what happens in a healthy society. And we are still healthy enough that we don't really have many self-proclaimed socialists in office. It's fringe candidates that are in office that are socialists. It's a handful of people in a handful of states that only have so much traction, and the ones that are most prominent are either people like Bernie Sanders, which is burning credibility every day, or people like Cortez or others, Ilhan Omar, who are winning tickets for Republicans. I mean, if I were a Republican, if I were a Republican strategist or a Republican politician, I would allow for Ilhan Omar and Cortez and others to just, especially Cortez in a pure Democrat district, just let her stay. You know, or even if you want to be Machiavellian, consider sending some money her way through a proxy to support her in her next election. That way she can stay and continue to be a punching bag for yourself, your party, and for American conservatives. Because people like Ilhan Omar and Cortez and others, the Tlaib, whatever her name is, and a few others, they benefit the right, putting that in quotations, conservatives in the United States, or Republicans, that not being the same in every instance. It benefits them. It behooves them to leave those people where they are, because they are awful. Everyone recognizes them as either cringy or crazy or dangerous in some instances, or that they hate America in the case of Ilhan Omar because she's an Islamist, and clearly so. It benefits the right to leave those people in power. You don't benefit by attacking physically Ilhan Omar. You don't benefit by physically attacking Cortez. It doesn't benefit you or society at large to attack these people physically. Even in the case that, some of these socialists are dangerous, yes, they are dangerous, it doesn't benefit you or your side or anyone really to attack them physically. It actually, in fact, benefits that person or that position, that side, that ideology, if you are physically violent towards them, because you become the political terrorist and they become the victim. And in the modern day where victimhood carries a lot of weight, even on both sides, you really don't stand to benefit by doing that. So in this case, with this girl, there's that. But there is the secondary element to it that I also want to talk about, which is her beliefs. Now, I can't speak for everyone, because I know that people that grew up with one parent may not be able to say this, or people that grew up with two parents that had different political persuasions. But in my case, I grew up with two Democrats. Both my mother and my father were Democrats. My father was in a union, and my mother was like a liberal Catholic. They didn't really disagree on much. The biggest thing I would say that they quote-unquote disagree on are things dealing with like the surveillance state, loosely, religion, loosely, And that's about it. You know, especially with my father, he's not very forthcoming with his political positions. And when he does, it's typically, you know, I don't want to really say authoritarian Democrat partisan, but it sort of is that. But the thing is that I don't think that makes my father necessarily an authoritarian. It's just because, in my view, he's being propagandized to by the media. That's why I think that he holds a bunch of his beliefs, because it's very easy to have faith in the CIA and the FBI if you have FBI and CIA agents coming on television telling you how competent they are and the rest of it, and just making up nonsense to justify their fucking paycheck and the billions and billions of dollars that we shovel into all these fucking agencies that ultimately serve no real purpose and are in many ways redundant compared to one another. My father, in his defense as well, even though this is a tangent, holds many good beliefs, I think, in relation to the workplace, in relation to collective bargaining, that are not, you know, dogmatic or not violent or anything that people can really have much of a profound disagreement with, other than it's a different perspective in that you can be taken advantage of easily by those in a corporate structure because ultimately, and this has been my experience no matter where I've worked, that beyond your next manager, like your manager, that manager above him, they don't give a fuck about you. They don't give a fuck about your day, your problems, your life, what you're going through. They don't give a fuck about any of it. And how they treat you reflects that. And so in the case of unionism or, collective bargaining or that sort of belief system, even if not just, action, it's reflective of the corporate structure, in my view. It's not hard, in my view, to be able to understand why, it's easy to be motivated and to believe in that based on your own experience and being in an environment where you are completely treated like disposable dog shit. And that has been every job I've ever fucking worked. That has been every job I've ever worked. I've always been treated in that fashion. With that tangent in mind, the reason I talk about that is, in the context of this story involving Mackenzie here, I think it's very likely that her politics are a reflection of her father's beliefs. It has likely been the case that her father has talked to her about politics and his beliefs and the way that he views the world, his worldview, and that he has instilled that worldview into her, and that she is naturally reflexive in accepting that because she loves him as her father. I don't think there's anything wrong initially with somebody holding the same politics as their parents, because it's very likely in that situation their parents have tried to instill beliefs in their child, they've tried to raise their child, and it's not unhealthy for them to have a reflexive attitude that their parents are the ultimate authority, that they have lived and experienced life, and that they've thought about their beliefs, and that they should reflect those beliefs because their parents are right and that they love their parents. I believe that to be healthy. But it doesn't mean you naturally have to reflect your parents' beliefs. And I think that when you reach adulthood, that it is imperative on you as an individual to reflect on your beliefs and challenge your own beliefs and consider whether your beliefs are morally right, are principled in terms of your actions and actually what you believe and that sort of thing. I think it's imperative on every new adult to consider their beliefs carefully, and they should consider all of their beliefs. Because in some instances, they can be ultimately justified. Or if they change their beliefs, it doesn't mean that they can't ultimately return to previous beliefs. And I can speak from experience that has happened to me, where I have changed my beliefs over time, and that I have abandoned certain beliefs, but have actually come back to them over time. So there's nothing wrong with challenging your beliefs, and in reaching adulthood, you should feel more freedom in challenging not only your beliefs, but the beliefs of your parents, and I do that fairly frequently when I talk to my parents and politics is brought up. Not always my own prompting, but when we do discuss politics, I try to challenge my parents, not in a mean way, although I used to do that when I was like a teen. But now that I'm an adult, I just discuss politics for the sake of challenging them and challenging myself and listening to what they have to say and reflecting on it. I think that that's a mature thing to do, and that any person in a healthy relationship with anybody, whether it's their parents or anybody else, can do that. I know that not every family can do that because people might have very rigid beliefs going either way, whether it's their parents or the person, the child. But I think that that is a mature relationship to have, and that people should try to achieve that. So in the case of Mackenzie here, it is likely that she has her father's politics, but there's nothing wrong with that, as I just laid out. But also that if you are someone on the left, if you are a quote-unquote liberal, and I don't really want to go down another tangent, but honestly at this point I don't even know if you can be a liberal and on the left anymore in principle and in philosophically, I mean. It's so bad right now, and I don't know if there's any room left to fight for turf anymore on the left. That's my current worldview, that the right seems a lot more malleable to change than the left. They seem to be completely dominated by just partisan Democrat authoritarians and progressive ideologues. Like, that is overwhelmingly the voices in the room in terms of the actual national politics. And I don't even know if there's any room anymore for even somebody like Tulsi Gabbard, who is a more liberally minded progressive. Like, even she is part of a fringe But in any case, if you are someone on the left, if you're a Democrat partisan, or you are a progressive or a far leftist of any variety, if you want to change this girl's mind, you've just done the opposite. You've just cemented her in her position. And unfortunately, that's what most of the left is doing at this point. They are pushing people away, and they are cementing conservatives in their position, or anyone to the right, no matter what their beliefs are. They are cementing those people in their beliefs, that they are ultimately correct, and that their opposition are censors, ideologues, totalitarians, and fucking lunatics. Just writ large. They are just fucking out of their minds, and that they're violent, and that they will use authoritarian tactics to crack down on their opposition, no matter how slight they are in their beliefs, how mild they are in their beliefs, and how young they are. This girl was bullied by the administration of her school, ultimately the top of the school. She was bullied by the administration of the school in censoring her own political beliefs, despite the fact that there's no rule saying that she must comply. She did it anyways out of fear of repercussions for the authorities in her school. That's wrong. It's wrong in so many ways. Like I've laid out, there's no rule on the book saying that she has to do that. The teacher was likely motivated by, the principal was likely motivated by his own personal bias, or the bias of the bigotry of those within the school that are also authority figures, such as teachers. I would put money on that being the case. That's another instance of this being just wrong. It's also wrong in the sense that if you want this girl to actually be open-minded in her beliefs, this is the exact opposite thing to do. This is only going to cement her in her position that her father's politics, her politics, are right. Not just correct, but right. Righteous. Because her opposition are fucking authoritarian censors. Even when they don't have the rules to justify what they're doing to her, they do it anyways. That is authoritarian bigotry. You're not motivating her to do anything more than consider her existing politics to be absolutely in the right, and her belief in Trump to be absolutely in the right, and that she's part of a victimized class of people. This is also not good if you want to have somebody that's more philosophically inclined to be an individualist or a liberal. You're pushing them to be a collectivist. You're pushing them to see themselves as part of a victimized class of people that are united in their belief, in this instance, in Trump as a politician, which is also not good, by the way. It's not good to have Obama as the messianic politician. It's also not good to be a fervent follower of Trump, in that he is the last bastion of non-political correct politicians or masculinity or anything else, or capitalism, what have you. It's not good for someone to hold a ardent attachment to a politician because it's very likely that the politician is not going to actually follow through with their promises and do what they've said to their own followers that they're going to do. And they are more likely to excuse bad behavior on behalf of their politician because you have pushed them into that camp. You've pushed them into that group, because they see no other alternative but that politician. If we lived in a healthy society, if we lived in a society where politics and culture wasn't sick, it would be very easy for people among Trump's base to distance themselves from Trump or be more willing to condemn him for his inaction and his breaking of certain promises. And he has done that, by the way. He has broken promises, and he has betrayed his base in several different ways. Not in every way, but in several different ways he's betrayed his own base. And that has gone predominantly, in my view, just there's been no response from Trump's base. And I think that a large part of it is stories like this. I mean, how do you think the father's going to vote? How do you think the father's going to vote in this instance? You think he's going to be more likely to consider some other candidate now that his fucking child, his daughter, has been bullied at her high school by the fucking administration? You don't think that that's going to make the father want to get out and be more active in politics related to Trump, in his support of Trump and Republicans? You don't think that's going to make him more motivated? I know that if I was a father in this instance, I would be unbelievably upset by this. And the father in this instance, this guy, seems very measured, seems very calm in talking to the press. But I would be incredibly animated by this if the school administration bullied my child for the sake of her political beliefs and my political beliefs. That shows you that there's an internal bias in the school. Not just some students or that principal. No, there's some bias in the school. We just don't know from where. Related to politics. During a holiday celebrating American pride. There's something clearly wrong at that school in terms of the actual institution. You know, it could be just the principal. It may be just one guy. But he is the guy on top. The only guy above him is the fucking superintendent. And maybe the superintendent's involved, but probably not in this instance. It's likely just the core of the administration of that school that's involved in what happened here. And that is a bias related to the institution. That is not some students on the ground that are bullying her. It is the administration acting not on a rule that they've laid out, but acting in fact against the rules that they have in place. They invoke dress code to make her cover up. It's not part of the actual dress code. What does that tell you? What does that tell you about the willingness to abuse rules as part of an actual institution, despite the fact that the rules aren't even there? They're using a rule that doesn't apply to her. What does that tell you about the administration of this school? So this is Louis with an important update to this story, and this came out yesterday. This was reported on yesterday. That the principal, by all appearances, was forced by the superintendent to release a statement on the matter and apologize to the McKenzie family, that's their last name, but apologize to the girl and her family for doing what he did in this instance. And there's two parts to this update, and the first part is going to be me congratulating and praising Valerie McKinney, who is the Epping superintendent for the school district. She very likely forced the principal to do this, and that's going to be the second part. But the first part, we're going to read her statement. The Epping School Board and the Epping School District's position is that the event should never have taken place, and we are committed to the creation of a school environment that promotes open and free thought and dialogue. So, absolutely right. Great statement. Great decision. The principal should be disciplined. He wasn't disciplined as far as we can tell. He should be. And we're going to see in part 2 of this, the second issue of this, you'll see why I think that. But I will praise Valerie here for doing this because this was absolutely wrong. The principal was absolutely in the wrong. This should have never occurred. It was completely unjustified in your own rules, and they admit as much in this, in the apology. They admit that they have to change the rules because this was done outside of their own rules. So obviously the principal's in the fucking wrong. But very much well done to the superintendent here, but you should punish the principal for this. And the second part we'll move into is the fact that the principal is likely a bigot. He is likely the source of this and probably other teachers at the school, but more importantly, him. And here's his statement that he was forced to give, by the way. He sent out a letter to the school community which stated, I want our students to be free thinkers and be able to express their opinions in a respectful manner. So why the second half of that sentence? What defines respect? What defines respectful? And I can already tell you, If you're conservative, you're disrespectful inherently. Anything that you're going to express is going to be inherently disrespectful. Why am I concluding that? Well, how about the second half of this? We've begun to draft a plan to move forward to promote civil discourse, not free thought, civil discourse, which again, it's like, okay, define civil, and diversity in our schools. Diversity is nothing more than a code word, which, by the way, is excluding Soretta, or Mackenzie, as I called her here. She is going to be excluded. She is not diverse. She's a white female that has conservative beliefs. That is not diverse, according to progressives. So she is going to continue for the next 4 years to be excluded. This principal is very likely to be a fucking bigot. This faggot, Brian Ernest. Bigot principal. Unprofessional. That should be removed, if not penalized, for this behavior. He's going to continue to fucking do it because he's likely to be a far-left bigot. It's the only criticism I'm going to give to Valerie here, the superintendent. Why wasn't this guy punished? He's clearly unrepentant. Clearly going to continue doing this. He clearly doesn't understand why what he did was wrong, immoral, unjustified, should never do it again. He clearly shows the opposite, that he's going to continue to fucking do it through his loaded language here, through his deflection and fucking code word-ridden apology to the family for what he did. I want to fully acknowledge my error in judgment and sincerely apologize if my actions were misinterpreted and offended anyone. That was never my intention. Can you even draft your own letter that sounds as insincere as this one? Can you even imagine one that is more insincere? This is clearly a bigot that is unrepentant in what he did. He believes himself to be in the right, and he is simply doing this because he was told to do it by the superintendent, or else he would have faced this disciplinary action. Very clearly. He should be removed from this position. Because, to me, this is just a matter of the difference between the authority of his role and that of the students just being able to express their own political opinion when there's no rules saying they're not allowed to do it. There's no rules on the books saying that they are not allowed to actually express their views. And this fucking guy is sitting here insincerely apologizing when we all know he's going to continue to fucking do this. We all know this fucking cocksucker is going to continue to bully his fucking students even while being not just an authority figure in the school, but a fucking adult. You're bullying high school freshmen that are students in your high school. You're supposed to be the authority figure, the highest one in the school. And you're bullying your own students, you know, using non-existent rules. What kind of fucking psychopath does that? I don't even want to get into it because I really didn't want to start screaming in this commentary. But this fucking person is evil. You are clearly an immoral person. You are so fucking insincere. Brian Ernest. You are beyond pathetic. What kind of... I don't want to call him a faggot again. What kind of fucking beta male has to bully a fucking underage female for her political beliefs? What kind of fucking beta male has to do that? God damn. If this is not just the most evident sign that our society has some fundamental fucking problems. You have a professional person in education, a principal, bullying students, bullying a fucking freshman girl, bullying a little teenager just because of her fucking political beliefs. She wears a fucking MAGA cap and you bully her as a fucking professional. What is wrong with you? I'm telling you, this is not the last we've heard of this fucking piece of shit. He's going to come up again. There's going to be another news story with the same guy either bullying her again or waiting a couple years and bullying another student in the exact same fucking way. Because with progressives, they don't fucking learn. You can only fucking... I don't even want to say it. You can only force them to act within the fucking rules. You can only tell them that if they don't act within a certain rule set, they'll be terminated or they'll be jailed or something else. They will do everything in their power to punish others, to bully others, terrorize everyone around them to just reflect their views if you don't force them to do otherwise. That is every fucking instance that I've ever seen. Unless you dismiss them from that position or put them in such a position that they are their arms are tied so that they can no longer bully others around them, they will continue to do so. So yeah, in this case, this guy should absolutely be fired. Absolutely. This is the most insincere shit I've ever read. And, you know, like, the reason it angers me so much is, like, I know this girl's gonna continue to be fucking bullied. Like, I know other students in this fucking school are gonna continue to be bullied. And if you have some far-left fucking lunatics in this school that are students or teachers, who the fuck do you think that the principal is gonna side with as the top administrator of the school? Who do you think the administration is gonna side with in that instance? Is it gonna be Mackenzie here? Or is it going to be some far-left activist that's in the school? Teacher or student? What do you think is going to fucking happen? This is sickening to me. Completely disgusting behavior. And an utterly insincere so-called apology for inexcusable behavior. And I'm sorry for the rant as a cut-in to my own commentary. It's already long, by the way. But this, to me, is something that is just such an example. Just such a glaring example of how fucked up this country is. How fucked up politics are. When we all can see this. Anyone who knows progressives, we all know that this isn't going to fucking stop. We all know this guy is going to continue doing what he's doing. And that this was a soft-handed approach from the superintendent. This guy absolutely should have faced disciplinary action. Because based on his so-called apology, he is unrepentant in his fucking behavior, in his actions. He just apologized because he was caught. And it's become a national news story. That's what he's sorry for. But yeah, I'm sorry. I'll just stop here and continue on with the commentary. To me, this story is just a microcosm of everything. It's a microcosm of our society and the bigotry that exists in it, and the the sickness of our society, the culture and our politics, and the willingness for authority figures, and even just people on the ground, to bully others, to harass others, to censor others, just for the sake of them holding different beliefs. And the fact is that in the case of this child and father, their beliefs are probably incredibly mundane. They are probably incredibly, and the father's probably Gen X. This is probably just boomer sort of Republican politics. It is very likely that this guy is just the run-of-the-mill conservative. And that the daughter is probably is Zoomer insanely fucking moderate in her beliefs. It is very likely that is the case, based on polling that I've seen of what Zoomers in general believe. It is very likely she is incredibly moderate in her beliefs. Especially as a woman as well. Sorry, I didn't want to say it, but it's very likely that that's the case. And yet, despite all of that, they are still being treated as though that they're fucking Klansmen. That they are someone that deserves societal pressure to change their political beliefs in an actual forceful manner, in an aggressive manner. It's not an actual respectful dialogue between the two sides. No, it is one side using authority to tell another that you must either change your politics or you don't express yourself at all. You either change your beliefs to my own or shut the fuck up. That is the degree that we see in this instance, and like I say, I think it is a clear sign that there is a sickness in our society. This is not healthy. This is some third world kind of shit here. This is authoritarian. And I would expect this out of some Muslim nation. A third world shithole that you and I would feel lucky to never visit. Those politics are what we see reflected in American society today, which is not simply a first world nation, but the nation with the most wealth, and the nation, I think, with the most billionaires, outside of, I think, like Qatar or UAE or wherever the fuck. We're a nation of wealth and of first world status. It's completely anathema to anyone in the right mind that our politics should be this unhealthy, that our society should be this sick, where we're seeing school administrators bully a fucking child, a high school freshman, over mundane fucking beliefs that lean right. There's even more that I can go into here in relation to, I don't want to say like the victimization of Trump supporters, because I think that's kind of loaded, but even though it's easy to say that if you've seen all the instances. But the fact that it's just really unfortunate to me that in this instance with this girl, like no one is actually going to explain to her, maybe outside of her father, and he's already going to be biased in this sense because obviously he's the father, but no one is going to actually explain to this girl, because I'm certain the fucking journalist didn't do this. No one's going to explain to her how wrong this is. How wrong this is in a free society for this to be happening to her. How really, I mean, it is depressing how fucked up this is. Even though it's just one story. This is one of a million stories that just made the news and that got national circulation. Where you have a girl that if she was a feminist, if she was a progressive, if she was a collectivist, if she was a socialist, if she was all these different things, she would be lauded, celebrated. She'd have everyone kissing her ass. The only group that wouldn't be would be the racial identitarians. They would be the only ones that have a problem with her because she's white. But everyone would be kissing her ass if she held those beliefs. Everyone would be kissing her ass and promoting her. But the fact is that she's not a feminist, or at least not in the traditional sense. She's not a progressive. She's not any of those different things. She's a Gen Z conservative or Republican. Those are her beliefs. And because of that, she is not only publicly shamed, but she is bullied by the school that she's going to spend the next 3 years in, or 4 years, because she's a freshman. So for 4 years, she's going to have that hanging over her head every day she's there. That the administration is very aware of this story because it went national. They're very aware of her. And I can't think that after this, they're going to really have much fondness for her, as well as many of her fucking far-left teachers that are part of far-left unions. The tragedy in this is that once she graduates, bro, it's not over. High school cliquishness and that sort of thing, it's only worse in office environments because you're cared about even less in the office space. The only thing you have going for you is that you're a woman. Honestly, that's the only thing you have going for you in the office space, because you're going to be treated as badly in the professional environment and in society at large, just in society in general. High school never ends, man. In terms of this kind of sick, cliquish nature, it's everywhere. And it shouldn't be. It really shouldn't be. We shouldn't be living in this sick society that we currently are. And I wish it were otherwise. And my hope is that somewhere down the road, there can be some kind of reconciliation that, and I have to put the onus on the left, that they just back down. They stop being so bigoted. They just get over themselves. They get over their ridiculous beliefs. And that they can stop viewing anyone on the right as a Nazi. They are the ones that are going to have to budge. And I do think that at some point there is going to be a reconciliation. But it's just a matter of when. What is it going to take? How many little girls do you have to fucking bully unjustly? Like, you just invent aspects to rules in order to fucking, wield authority over them, to silence them, to censor them for their beliefs, mild as they are as a Zoomer, a Gen Z girl. Like, how long does this have to carry on until you fucking back down? I do think it's going to happen. I have hope for our society. But when is it going to happen? When are you going to give it up? When are you going to back down? When? What is it going to take? How many people do you have to victimize before you get it that what you're doing is indefensible? Because anyone with any kind of just basic sense of morality can easily distinguish as being terrible, as being immoral, what went on in this instance, and in every instance that it occurs, regardless of who it is. When are you actually going to understand that what you're doing is immoral to everyone that you're doing it to? When are you going to get that? Because it clearly is. And the only reason why you are pushing this and continuing to try to justify, even to yourselves, your actions, it is because you are unwilling to let go of your utopian delusions as it reflects society. Your beliefs are totalitarian and they are utopian, and you are just simply refusing to let go of them. You are refusing to be a political realist outside of your tactics against your political opponents. That's the only sense in which you are a political realist, in the way that you conduct yourself against your opponents, where you are doing immoral things, indefensible things, in pursuit of your own power. When are you actually going to admit to yourselves what you're doing, and that your beliefs, your goals are fucking ridiculous? What is it going to take? Because it's just a matter of time before you fucking back down. Because the world you believe that you're trying to enact is never going to occur. So give it up. Let it go. Get past it and reconcile with the right in this fucking country so that politics can go back to normal. There's very few issues of real contention that do need to be addressed. One of the big ones, in my view, is immigration. That, to me, is one of the issues that eventually needs to be addressed. And that, in my view, based on plenty of analysis and my own reading, that the right has simply won out on in terms of their worldview, that they are correct in. Seems to be people in my comment section don't seem to understand that I'm saying that, oh no, when I say Trump won, or conservatives won, that means they got everything they wanted. No, attention retards. I mean their worldview. They're correct in what they are calling for. They're correct in their worldview in terms of their understanding of immigration. They're correct in that sense. If they had actually gotten what they wanted, we wouldn't even have Trump. We wouldn't have all the things that were like the current crisis that we're in at the border, in the detention centers, and Trump, saying that he's going to release illegals in sanctuary cities. That wouldn't be brought up if they weren't fucking streaming across the border in terms of thousands upon thousands of people per day. If those weren't the current circumstances, it wouldn't even be discussed. But because those are the circumstances that we find ourselves in, it will be addressed at some point. It's just a matter of how bad does it have to get before it's eventually addressed. And in my view, the right is right on the topic. So when will it be addressed, and when will you just simply give the right, in quotations, what they want, because that simply needs to occur? The left's view seems to be that we can take in as many wage slaves as we possibly can, legally or illegally, and that somehow things will just work themselves out. I'm sorry, that's a utopian delusion. The opposite is occurring. Society is fucking crumbling because of with the fact that we have too high of illegal immigration and too high of legal immigration. Too much of it at once. It's destroying our fucking society. Things are crumbling. Things are becoming increasingly dysfunctional, not just in terms of infrastructure, meaning policing, schooling, sewer systems, the rest of it. It's not just actual infrastructure, roads. It is also our society, our culture, and politics. It's incredibly terrible right now. It's deteriorating at a rate that, that's when the whole clown world meme comes from. That's why people are becoming nihilistic and despondent and disillusioned. It is because things are so bad. And that is it's not the only factor, but immigration is a contributing factor to the disintegration of normalcy in America. And the only way to fix this issue is to stymie the flow of illegals and legals. It's not going to solve the issue of our politics and the sickness in our culture, but that is a contributing factor, and it needs to be cut off. However it's done, it needs to fucking be done. And until you address it, it is going to continue to be a portion of the disintegration of normal politics in the United States and of revolution in our culture, where hating America is just fucking commonplace at this point. You should not see, in a normal functioning society, you should not see people saying they hate our nation, saying that they're entitled to our systems and our welfare systems based on me paying taxes and them doing dog shit. Being on workers' comp, being on welfare, being on all the social safety nets, public and private, taking advantage of all of us that are contributing, and at the same time spitting in our faces and waving, this is the biggest thing, waving the flags of the nations they left. If your nations that you're coming from weren't fucking shitholes, why the fuck would you be here? Why would you be here other than the fact that the nation you're leaving is a fucking shithole? You're coming to our nation that is in every way a better nation, and you're taking advantage of us as you spit in our face. This is contributing to a factor that is making our society sick, and it needs to be cut off. It needs to be solved. And so long as inaction continues to be the standard practice of politics and of politicians, society's just going to continue to be fucked up. I'm sorry that was a tangent, but it's speaking to a bigger issue here, and this girl being bullied is a symptom. This is a symptom of our fucked up politics and our sick society. This girl being bullied by the administration of this school for no discernible reason other than her political beliefs and how she expresses them. That is a symptom of our sick society, and we need to address the root causes, the sources of the things that are contributing to this sickness. And as I went on a tangent, immigration is a portion of it. And it needs to be addressed for that reason. No more high school girls with mundane beliefs should be bullied just because we have all these other societal problems. We can debate certain issues, because I don't think that the right, quote unquote, is right on every particular issue in every single way, ultimately. But in the cases where we have identified the problem and that we have a solution to solve it, it should be enacted. Action should be taken. That whatever needs to happen should be immediately executed. Get it done, do it, solve the problem so that we can live in a functional fucking society again. And that's so the people that are here that are not cohesive to a normal society, that they can actually adapt, that they can become integrated, that we can have a cohesive, functional society. Restore normalcy. And I'm sorry to the left that bitches and moans about Trump's tweets. No, you are the largest contributor to what's going wrong in this society. And all this nonsense of bigotry being everywhere, white supremacy is everywhere, all this shit, the only place that it is in your own head, if it even exists at all, if it isn't just a tactic for you to, like I said before, a Machiavellian or political realist tactic for you to achieve power. If it isn't just that, you just lying for the sake of your own power. You need to recognize the immoral shit you're doing and the fact that the utopian vision that you have for America is nothing more than a delusion that will never fucking happen, no matter how much power you have and no matter how many little girls you fucking bully. What you want is never going to occur, so give it up. Give it up. And reconcile with the right, you bigots. And I'll leave it there. Thanks for listening.